So good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Stickney. I am the Deputy Manager for the Department of Energy here at the 2 field offices for environmental management here at Hanford. Welcome to the beautiful Tri-Cities. My Tri-Cities, I'll call it, here on the official last day of summer. So appreciate you all making time to come out here today. You'll hear me have a few administrative notes here before we kick off. And if you really pay close attention to these, I promise I will not turn this into a karaoke event. So first, we always start everything with safety. I just want to remind you, for this facility, in the event of any emergency or fire alarm, please in an orderly manner, leave the building here toward the entrances you had. Go to your right toward the north parking lot, and there are exit signs pointing the way, and that's where we'll stage in that event. As far as a couple administrative reminders, the agenda and presentations for this are going to be posted on the Department of Energy website and can be accessed today using the QR code that was provided at the registration desk. The meeting today will be videotaped and will be posted on the DOE website, and a list of participants will be posted to the website as well. Please see one of our organizers, either outside at the hall or some of the folks that you may have already talked to today, if you object to having your name published on the list. So I wanted to make a couple of comments here early on. Obviously, you're here today for the Cleanup to Clean Energy Information Day. I am in the business of the cleanup side, but I think it's important, that nexus between the cleanup as we transition the site to this wonderful, cool, clean energy initiative. So thank you again for joining us today as we discuss these potential opportunities to advance the nation's clean energy initiatives. History is important to us. Obviously, the Tri-Cities itself is a little bit of a company town, at least in the origin. As the Manhattan Project started and Hanford performed its national security mission for over 4 decades, 1989 was really a transition point for the mission, when we stopped the national security mission and we began environmental cleanup. And that environmental cleanup has been a part of our core of what the department has done out here now for over 30 years. And we have accomplished significant things. And going through that cleanup, we have developed a cadre of incredibly talented scientists and engineers and professional staff that overcome all of these technical challenges that we face every day. And also that promulgates into the community as well with strong STEM initiatives. And this is a really invigorated community with folks that are trained and ready to tackle the nation's challenges. As I mentioned, this cleanup is hard. We have advanced worker safety and health across the nation from the work done here at Hanford, understanding of chemical and radiological hazards, as well as all kinds of technological innovations. It's all taken place here in the Tri-Cities and with the work that's been executed under the Department of Energy. Some of that work, and I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of bragging over the numbers because I think it's important and it leads us to where we are today. Over time here of the cleanup mission, we have cocooned 7 of the 9 reactors that were used. One of those is preserved for the national park, and the last reactor is under active cleanup right now. We have remediated over 20 million tons of soil and debris, demolished over 950 facilities, remediated more than 1,000 waste sites, and retrieved 20 underground storage tanks. We have treated nearly 32 billion gallons of groundwater on this 586 square mile reservation. And we have treated at an industrial scale through our tank-side cesium removal system over 550,000 gallons of tank waste as we prep for the next phase of our mission, which is really operations and tank waste treatment. I am pleased to announce that the waste treatment plant has glass pool in a hot melter. As we talk today, we're at 2100 degrees on melter 1, and we continue to work through that and continue the cold commissioning process there. So progress is being made every day. But as we're at this transition point in the cleanup mission now, where we're going from the traditional demolition and decommissioning into the operations mindset, we are also at an inflection point in the overall mission and the needs of the nation. And it's just a really cool opportunity, and that's why we're here today, because that cleanup allows us to have this opportunity today to really start this discussion of the 19,000 acres of contiguous land considered for leasing for carbon-free energy development. It is consistent with the Hanford Comprehensive Land Use Plan. So we're committed to making steady progress from the cleanup site here, but we're also committed to being the best landlords in the world for this land as we continue down this process. And really what we're here to do today is have a conversation with you about the idea that we have and solicit your input and answer your questions as we begin to march together on a path to really putting solutions forward for the existential crisis of climate change facing our nation. You know, this community is very focused on clean energy development and being a hub for clean energy. The tribes are committed partners of ours in the cleanup effort, as well as seeking their own energy sovereignty. I believe this is a great place to do business and a great place to live. And I'm really excited to have the conversation with you all. So again, please, welcome. Thank you for showing interest today. And please join me in welcoming the advisor to the Secretary of Energy, Narayan Subramanian, who will give some remarks now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here today. And I wanted to start by thanking the Hanford Site offices for being really gracious hosts. Really, when we kicked this off many, many months ago, I don't think any of us would have imagined that we would be here at this moment today. I wanted to cover two themes as we're kicking off today. The first is one that the Secretary mentioned when she kicked off the initiative on July 28th, this past summer. And she kicked off what we're calling the Clean Up to Clean Energy Initiative. And what she said is this is a marriage of missions for the Department of Energy. And what she meant by that is it's not too often at the department that you see the Office of Environmental Management, the Office of the Undersecretary for Infrastructure, the Office of Nuclear Energy, the National Nuclear Security Administration, and the Office of Management all working together on one initiative. As you know, the department has a deep, deep history going from the Atomic Energy Commission to the Energy Research and Development Agency, the Federal Energy Agency, and then ultimately the creation of DOE. But along the way, the department has picked up a lot of interesting authorities. The department has picked up a lot of interesting expertise. But the department has also built a lot of deep relationships with communities and tribes along the way. And part of the reason that the Secretary really emphasized this theme of the marriage of missions is going back to the very beginning of the administration, the President put out a series of executive orders directing agencies that were dealing with the climate crisis, including the Department of Energy, to really make community and tribal engagement as a centerpiece of the work that we do when it comes to clean energy deployment. And I do want to take a moment to give a shout out to Kate Gordon, who's here, who is a former senior advisor to the Secretary. And Kate was one of those people who early on identified, well, there is a part of the department that has been doing this for a long time. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. And that part of the department is the Office of Environmental Management. We have, when it comes to the clean energy demonstration and deployment mission, we have a lot to learn from the Office of Environmental Management, the deep relationships they've built with communities and tribes, and also a process through which we can learn and be responsive to feedback that we receive from the local communities and the tribes. And that is very much at the heart of this initiative today. So fast forward, the bipartisan infrastructure law was passed in November 2021, and then later on was the Inflation Reduction Act in the summer of 2022. And the department was given an expanded mandate to demonstrate and develop or deploy clean energy at scale. And along the way, there was also another executive order that came out, Executive Order 14057, which is known as the Federal Sustainability Executive Order. And that executive order directed all the federal agencies to achieve an audacious goal of 100% carbon-free electricity by 2030. And Ingrid Cobb, our Chief Sustainability Officer, can tell you all about, how hard of a goal that is, but nevertheless, this is a department that has deep expertise to actually deliver on that kind of a goal. And among the things that the executive order also did was it said, look beyond your grants and your loans. Look at your leasing authorities. Look at the whole suite of authorities that your federal agencies have. And that's exactly what we did here. So a combination of Ingrid Cobb and Kate Gordon and many other folks in this room said, well, in addition to all the grants that we're putting out through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, in addition to the grants and loans, we also have a lot of land as a department, and land that has already been designated for industrial use and potentially for clean energy deployment. So just going back to the marriage of missions, what's been especially exciting about this is we're really bringing so many different facets of the department together. So not just the Office of Environmental Management, not just the Office of the Undersecretary for Infrastructure, but here specifically at Hanford, also the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and the capabilities and the experience they bring. So that's really exciting. The second theme that I wanted to touch on is just the opportunities that are available here. Specifically here at Hanford, yesterday we had a series of meetings with community leaders and tribal leaders, and one thing that came through is there are so many ideas out there in terms of how we can make an initiative like this a success and something that has enduring benefits to the community and the tribes here. And what I would offer to you all is really the opportunity to give us your feedback, your thoughts on how we can make this a success. So there's a request for information on the street. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. But what we're really looking to do here is not just build or try to facilitate the build out of a large-scale clean energy project, but use that as an opportunity to build a clean energy industrial base, facilitate a clean energy industrial base in the surrounding community that really brings benefits to the tribes, to the communities around here. So that's really what we're trying to do here. And if we can do it here, we can really do it across the country. This is an opportunity to create a model for what a clean energy industrial base can look like. And the richness of the history of Hanford uniquely positions us to be able to do that here. So without further ado, I want to call the Deputy Secretary on stage, and I want to specifically thank the Deputy for his leadership and being a real champion of this effort. The Deputy has also been one of those people who's constantly connecting the dots and encouraging us to marry all these missions at the department. So today, it's really an honor to be able to marry our cleanup mission with our clean energy mission. And so thank you. Thank you for your participation today.
Thank you very much, Ryan. It's just terrific to be here with you all on a beautiful day. I could do one of two things here. One, I could read the speech that was prepared. It's a good speech. If anybody's interested in it, I'm happy to hand it out. Or I could do something that I think is going to be more interesting for all of you and certainly more interesting for me. And that's just speak to the heart. And speak to the heart, three particular groups of folks here that are so important in this particular project. And there's some overlap between those groups. So if everyone's okay with me doing the second of those two options, we'll go with it. The first group, and I really want to purposefully start out with this group, is my fellow colleagues, the team we have at the Department of Energy. Not only at headquarters, but even more importantly, the folks who are out here working day in and day out. And I don't just mean our federal government employees, I mean our partners, the thousands of folks who are employed and working in our cleanup site in particular. This is my second time at the Department of Energy. My first time at the Department of Energy, I didn't have an awful lot of interaction with our EM colleagues, our environmental management colleagues. And so when I came into this role a couple years ago, it was new territory for me. And I wasn't sure how I would think about the portfolio. It's obviously a huge portfolio. We've got a huge legacy of responsibility around our country, Hanford first and foremost, but other sites around the country. Those who've seen Oppenheimer, I think, are being educated a little bit on the scale of what we're dealing with on the cleanup side. My hope is, and I've joked about this, but I'm actually really serious, I'd love to have Christopher Nolan do a sequel on the cleanup effort, right? He did such a good job for those who saw Oppenheimer. It feels like there's a movie in there, a really compelling movie with all sorts of phenomenal passion and talent that's going into the EM mission. So I want to recognize the folks working on that cleanup mission. I think it's the most solemn responsibility that we have the department to do this right, to do this transparently, to do this in partnership with the community. Certainly want to credit Ike and his leadership of the EM team. We've got at least 3 Brians, I think, working on this. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Maybe there's a 4th or a 5th Brian. I'm sure there are as we look at the full extended team working on this. And as Narayan has said, as Brian, one of our Bryans has already said, and I think our other Brian will say this too, the EM mission is first and foremost. That is a priority. That's what we're doing. Certainly want to acknowledge our PNNL colleagues. Pacific Northwest National Lab is such a gem. Had dinner last night with Steve Ashby and his team, just catching up on the very latest of what's going on there. I think it's exciting, and it's exciting to have both of those missions here. And what we're doing here is a related mission, and I think, as Narayan said, very much a natural extension of what we've been doing here for many, many years. And this is the cleanup to clean energy. And as Narayan said, and I think his turn of phrase was a marriage of missions, Narayan, is that right? It really is that. And I have to say, this was an idea that not only the Secretary and I couldn't be more excited about, but what's even more important is that marriage of mission and the excitement by folks across the department for this mission. There have been some ideas that I think are great ideas, and some parts of the department are behind it, and other parts are maybe grudgingly okay with it, and others actively opposed to it. And we work through that, but this is one that I've not heard anyone say, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. It is a marriage of mission, and I think the right idea at the right particular time. So I just want to acknowledge the Department of Energy colleagues across our department who've been working on this. And I hope I don't exclude anyone too important, but I think it's important to just name a few folks. And I want to do this in particular for the other couple audiences, and I'll get to that here, the other partners in the room, so that you know who to follow up with in particular today, but beyond. Certainly Narayan, thank you. Narayan's a lawyer. There are good lawyers and bad lawyers, if I can say that, and Narayan's a good lawyer, and a lawyer who wants to get to yes. That's not true. Oh, we love all our lawyers at DOE. We've got the Brian Hawkins, Brian Stickney in particular, Brian Vance. We've got Kate Gordon, who Narayan gave an appropriate shout out for as a true dot connector, making sure the department is working as it should. We've got Jeremiah, who's doing phenomenal work, and from this region, from this area out here. And one thing that we've gotten, Brian Hawkins and I were just talking before this meeting, many of the folks on our team are from the community, have been raised in the community, and have lived here, whether their whole lives or decades, periods of time. And just wanted to point that out in particular. We've got Julie, we've got Ingrid, we've got Ike and Candace from our EM team. We've got Karen, we've got Carrie, we've got Paula. We've got such a phenomenal team. So thank you for all your teamwork. Thank you for all your passion. And now you know the folks that you can talk to further about this beyond the formal discussion today. Now, as smart as we think we are at the Department of Energy, and we've got a bunch of nerds, it's about 110, 115,000 people across the country, some of the smartest, literally Nobel Prize winners. This cleanup to clean energy idea, which I think is a phenomenal idea, didn't come from us. We're excited to carry this, we're excited to partner on this, we're excited to shepherd this. But this idea, and we're not just doing this here at the Hanford site, we're actually doing this in other sites across the country, but this actually came directly from discussions with community leaders. And that's the second group I really want to recognize and thank for your leadership, for your vision, and certainly for your partnership and execution. In fact, the name Clean Up to Clean Energy, which is a phenomenal turn of phrase, actually came from someone in the community in a meeting we had a little while ago when I was in town. And Sandra Haynes in particular, there she is in the back. Why are you in the back? So I was asking the team, especially Narayan, our lawyers, if you trademark that phrase so that we have to pay you a certain amount of money anytime we use it. And apparently you didn't do that, so thank you. Is it too late? I think it is too late, isn't it? Narayan, is it too late for her to? So thank you, Sandra, for the turn of phrase, but thank you for the community leaders who really see this as rightfully so. such a phenomenal opportunity for the community of which we're a partner, a community of which we are neighbors, and really want to thank not only the state officials, the governor's been terrific, Senator Murray and her staff, Senator Cantwell and his staffs, Representative Newhouse and his team. I know we've got some representatives here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all your partnership, all your leadership. Thank you to all our elected community leaders. For those who are elected community leaders, it is not an easy time to actually put yourself up for election and to represent your fellow constituents, your neighbors. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for the business leaders. Thank you for everyone who's part of the Hanford communities. It's just such a pleasure to work with you all, in particular on this effort. And I'll get back to this again as I talk to our third group, but we genuinely want this Clean Up to Clean Energy to work for the community. That is something this president feels incredibly passionate about. That's something the secretary, our secretary, Granholm, feels incredibly passionate about. And we want to make sure we design this, we want to make sure we execute, we want to make sure we implement this in a way that is going to benefit the community in terms of jobs, in terms of your economic development vision, in terms of the technologies you're most excited about going forward. As part of the community, an incredibly important part of the community, I want to recognize the tribes and the tribal leaders as partners in all things, and they will need to be partners, genuine partners in this effort as well. So to the Nez Perce, to the Confederated Tribe of the Umatilla, thank you for your partnership on this. To the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakima, thank you for your partnership. And to the Wanampum, thank you as well. And I mean that genuine partnership, and hold us to it on this particular project, as you should hold us to it on everything that we work with on that. All right, so that's the second group I wanted to talk with. And then the third group is to the partners on this particular project. And I know we've got a lot of interest, it's remarkable interest in a really good, positive way here in the room, and I know other folks will listen to this and be very eager to respond and be part of this discussion going forward. And these are the folks who are going to take advantage and be the actors so that the community gets the benefits out of this. We get all the other benefits Narayan said from this. So just a few things to keep in mind, and I'm going to be very direct on this. One, as you saw in the maps as you were coming in here, this is a large contiguous area of land. It is in fact 30 square miles. That is a big piece of land. That is not something that happens every day for clean energy potential and clean energy development. So I know that's exciting. I suspect that's why we've got so much interest among other reasons. We also, because of all the work being done on these lands for years and years as part of the cleanup effort, we have lots of data. So we can hopefully work with you. We can speed up on the environmental side, do it the right way, of course, do the cultural work that we need to do and should do. But we've already done a lot of work, so that gives us a bit of a head start here, and we're eager to really lean in on that. We've got phenomenal capabilities here in the community, certainly PNNL, and we're eager for the lab to partner in ways that are helpful, mutually beneficial going forward. We also have more generally just a phenomenal workforce and a talented workforce here in the community. And if you're a developer, if you're someone who wants to make some progress, this is a phenomenal community to be a part of. And I know folks know that, but I just wanted to reinforce that and point that out explicitly for those who maybe are less familiar. We've got broad leasing authority here. This is Department of Energy land. We're trying to step up and do the right thing with our responsibility, as Narayan said here. We've got the ability to do long-term leases and even longer-term leases, and eager for that feedback going forward. We are also eager for creativity here. We are not trying to go into this with some set vision, oh, it has to be this technology, it has to be that technology. We were very eager to hear creativity. We're very eager to, this is one of the best and brightest and biggest strengths of our country, is we're not all top down. In fact, the best ideas, as this idea more generally came from the community, there may be some creative ideas that our super nerds at DOE aren't even thinking about that might be really interesting to pursue here. So we're open and eager for that creativity. And I want to underscore this again, and this is something that we will hold everyone accountable for, including the folks that we partner with on this project. We want this to benefit the community. We are a neighbor in this community. This project should first and foremost benefit the community, and we're going to do this the right way. We want to do this urgently. We want to do this quickly. Our secretary, early on in her tenure, someone said her hair is on fire. And now some people, if you told them their hair was on fire, one, I'd be excited because that means I have hair. But secondly, they'd probably think that was a bad thing to say. She took it as a compliment, and we started calling our secretary hair on fire for a while. And that's because if there's a good idea, you want to do the right steps and you want to make sure you're doing it the right way, but we can't wait. We've got to move urgently, and there's a real interest on our end to move urgently. So we've got a request for information. We'll get into this. Ingrid in particular will lay out next steps. Ike will talk about this as well. But we've got a request for information already out there. We want to get comments by October 12th to make sure that we are factoring in all the input of what we could do with this project, what we could do with this land. And then we move very quickly after that and get another round of information out to folks even by Thanksgiving time so that we can actually make sure that we're moving quickly from our end. So let me just leave all of our folks in the room with one final thought. It is rare, and I can't tell you too many instances of this, where we truly have a win-win-win opportunity. It's the right idea, it's the right time, it's the right community to have leadership on this and to really step up. And when you have a win-win-win opportunity, you need to work in partnership, you need to have some humility going into it, and you need to seize that moment. So thank you to our DOE colleagues, thank you to our community leaders, thank you to our tribes, thank you to our would-be partners and hopeful partners, developers and others to try to take advantage of this win-win opportunity. All right, so hopefully that was more interesting than the prepared speech. If anybody wants the prepared speech, we can make it available to folks. All right, now I'm inviting Ingrid up to moderate a panel. She will ask some questions, and then very importantly, we will take any and all questions and make sure that we're answering all your questions today and over the coming days. And certainly invite Brian, Jeremiah, and Julie to come up as well for this panel. Ingrid, over to you.
So good morning, everyone. I have to tell you, I've been working on the Clean Up to Clean Energy initiative for several months, and I've been really excited about it. But right now, at this moment, I am more excited than ever. Deputy Secretary Turk, thank you for your remarks. This has really just pumped me up even more. Because one of the things I like about this initiative is we are thinking big, really big. I have worked at the Department of Energy for 21 years, and I will share with you, for years, we have looked around at the sites and thought, wow, we have all this land. Can't we, put it to even better use? But I have to say, I never envisioned generating as much electricity that would, generate electricity not only for our sites, but also for the public and for the communities. Never thought about that. So I just think that that is so exciting. And as the deputy said, this is a win-win-win. The department benefits, we're going to get a lot more clean electricity so we can meet the president's goal of 100% carbon pollution-free electricity by 2030. And I have to tell you, as the department's chief sustainability officer, that's one of the things that keeps me up at night. So I see this as an opportunity to really achieve that goal. But then also the communities. Think about the economic opportunity, the jobs that will be available, the clean electricity that will be available. That is just amazing. And then if we're generating a lot of electricity, going out to the public, creating that clean energy economy and environment that the president is envisioning and our secretary is envisioning, that makes you want to get up in the morning and come to work. So all very, very exciting. So thank you for getting me even more pumped up. We're gonna double our efforts. So You've heard a lot about the Clean Up to Clean Energy initiative already, and I'm not going to repeat it, but we are going to delve into the details. And we have an all-star panel that is going to give us those details. So first, we have Brian Harkins. Well, before you get up, I'm going to introduce everybody. See, Brian is excited too. He wants to talk about this. So Brian and I met this morning for the first time in person because we have been meeting online, which has been amazing. But we gave each other a big hug when we saw each other in person because Brian, I will tell you, has been there since the very beginning. And Brian has done incredible work in figuring out all the details. And so he's going to share that information with you. And he knows so much, and it's just amazing. So Brian, I want to thank you for all the work that you have done and all the meetings that you have been in also. All right, and then next to Brian, we have Jeremiah Bauman. And Jeremiah, I have decided, has the longest title at the Department of Energy. I'm going to read it to you. All right, so here is Jeremiah's title. He is DOE Senior Advisor to the Undersecretary and Director of Policy and Implementation, Office of the Undersecretary for Infrastructure. It is 4 lines long, so it's pretty amazing. But Jeremiah, a couple things you need to know about Jeremiah. First of all, when he came to the department, he was a senior advisor to the secretary, did a fantastic job. And also, he is an expert in transmission issues, and we know that that's something that many of you want to hear about. And then he is a native son of this area, which is just fantastic. He went to elementary school here, so you can ask him about his experiences on that later. All right, and then we have Julie Turner, and Julie has a shorter title, but she has a very important job. She is the manager of the Pacific Northwest Site Office, and she is an Office of Science employee. So getting up, and Ryan was talking about, we're bringing together the marriage of all the different missions at the department. And one of the things that Julie and I were talking about this morning is that the department, whenever we have a tough challenge, we turn to our laboratories. Our 17 national laboratories are staffed with incredibly smart, creative people. And so Julie is working with the laboratory, and we're going to bring the laboratory in on this, as Narayan and the Deputy Secretary were both talking about. So really glad that Julie is here and that we have this marriage of all these different organizations. Oh, and I didn't mention what organization I work for. I'm the director of the Office of Management, which means I'm responsible for acquisition, real property, and real estate. And real estate is very important in this whole initiative, and do that for the department, and plus being the Chief Sustainability Officer. So with that as an intro, we are going to have time for lots of Q&A. So as you are listening to the speakers, please jot down your thoughts on some questions you'd like to ask. I have some questions too. I have the tough questions, but definitely, think about some questions. We will have mics floating around the room, so be ready for that. All right, so with that as an intro, Brian, the microphone is yours. Now you can get up. Talk.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the nice introduction. Thank you for attending today. This is really a unique area. An opportunity, and I am really looking forward to hearing from this group and more about your thoughts on how we might proceed with this opportunity. So if I can't overemphasize this one point, please provide that input and thoughts on how we might move forward, because it will be instrumental on whether we're able to move forward and how. So please help us with that information. I'm going to go over some of the details of the land that we're talking about, the 19,000 acres, and some of the processes. It'll be fairly quickly. These slides are online for your review, and there'll be some fact sheets also posted that back this up. But we just wanted to give you an overview of the land that we're talking about and some of the characteristics. So I'm not going to read this. I'm going to give you the shortened version of the legal statement that we have to provide. And that is that nothing that you hear today obligates the government in contractual space, and that the information provided today could be modified or updated in the future. So next slide, please. All right, so the Hanford site has a land use plan, we call it the CLUP, that is used for how we proceed with the cleanup mission and how the land will be used in the future. What you see is a map from that document. The document is available on the website if you're interested, but over 80% of the Hanford site, the 580 square miles, has been designated for preservation. But there was in that plan identified lands that would be used for industrial purposes in the future. And what you're seeing is that white area down there that the laser is circling. Those were identified in our land use plan, the club, for potential use in the future for industrial purposes. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the 19,000 acres. The red line describes or surrounds the land specifically that we're talking about. I want to go through some of the details on this map specifically just to describe what you're looking at. So at the bottom of the map, you see a large area that is set aside for the Patrol Academy. And those areas include safety buffers for training areas for our security forces, and as well are used by local law enforcement and military for training purposes. So there's a large area carved out at the bottom of that. The bottom right of the map, you see an area there that's in the 300 area. It has been in cleanup. There are remaining facilities in those areas. Up at the very top, you see an area that is currently leased to the Columbia Generation Plant, the local Energy Northwest nuclear plant. That is one of the leases that is on site here. And then to the top left is another lease that we have with LIGOS. So they're doing amazing work on looking for black holes. They're amazing. If you ever get a chance to go out and visit their visitor center, it's amazing. Really cool work going on there. Right in the center of the property is the 400 area. For those of us from the area, we would call that the FFTF. So there's some buildings there that are in the middle. The land itself in the map you see here has those blocks, and I wanted to describe a little bit about what those mean. So those are an indication of what the status of the land was when DOE, or Atomic Energy Agency, took control of this land. So the land that is marked in yellow that you see was private land, private ownership, and the land marked in green was public lands designated by a previous agency to the Bureau of Land Management. And so as we go forward, if we go forward with an activity, those green areas will be an area that the department will have to work with BLM on about the potential use of those lands for the future. So just an acknowledgement that there is still some work there to do. Let's move to the next slide, please. So this is a map of the waste sites and environmental monitoring. So the Hanford site has a tremendous amount of environmental monitoring that goes on, and including areas inside and surrounds this land where we do monitoring to ensure our cleanup activities have been successful, to monitor for emergency events and those things. So as we move forward, access will be needed to that equipment. There are a couple, so this is a circle cleanup site, and there are a couple areas I wanted to point out specifically. At the very top of the map up next to Energy Northwest, there is a barrel ground that needs to be remediated. And so any activities going forward would have to take into account the need for DOE to remediate that and clean up that waste site. In the middle of the site, there is a cleanup that is complete at this time and that has controls on it. Those controls include, there's a sign out there, there's groundwater monitoring, and there's a restriction from digging more than 15 feet on those grounds. Throughout the land, there is some other activities, some old pipelines and stuff like that that you just need to be aware of. If there are specific questions outside of this, we're more than happy to answer those questions. Next slide, please. Infrastructure. There is some existing infrastructure here. There are roads in place. There are power lines. And one of the points that we should make is that there are easements for those power lines and telephone lines and stuff like that. Those easements, some of them do not have a end date for them. So it's one of the things that will have to be considered for any future land use in this area. Next slide, please. There are a couple safety zones that we need to make sure people are aware of. There's one down around the 300 area for the work going on in one of the laboratories. And then there's one up at Energy Northwest. That's 1.2 mile safety zone. And for that safety zone, before any work activity could be done inside that zone, it would have to be reviewed and go through a formal review process. Next slide, please. Just a quick topographical map. So the land is relatively flat, little gentle rolling hills. It's the result of deposits from the Ice Age of materials. So you'll get a chance if you want to go out and view the land. But it is a relatively easy land, we believe, to develop further if we proceed. Next slide, please. And just an acknowledgement that part of our land use process has identified, the plants and the species there, and has identified different zones for if there is activities in development of land that would have to be remediated for. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there is an opportunity for you to go see the land if you're interested. This map, I believe, is being handed out. We would ask that you not leave the roadways and not stop in the roadways. These are roads that are used by vehicles, but you can drive around most of the site there and take a good look at the land. There are some areas where you're not allowed to go, so Energy Northwest, for example, in that area, and then the Patrol Academy, those areas, and there are a few other areas where they're marked for not entering. Please read the details carefully. It just is part of our process to make sure that people are safe and the security of the site. And so we'd again ask you to maintain yourselves on the roads. Next slide, please. So with that, the only thing I'm going to close with, and we'll open up to the panel here, is just an acknowledgement of how important I believe the opportunity is. The department has started the process, the cultural reviews on this land so that we can understand better and work with our partners on any cultural issues or any cultural significant areas that we need to take into account in this land. And as we move forward, and we're going to jump into those slides, is I'm going to go through the regulatory processes, but we're doing what we can to start the process early. But as we work forward, we would be working, the department will be working with any companies and also consulting with the tribes and the community about any path forward. Next slide, please. Again, I'm not going to read through the regulatory processes. I believe the time is better spent for us here today to answer questions and receive any feedback that you have to offer today. But just be aware that it is federal land and there are regulatory processes like NEPA that we will go through. And any companies that we partner with and lease land to would have to go through those processes with us as we develop those documentation. Next slide, please. This goes through the role of DOE, the role of any potential leasee. Next slide. There is, I would mention that as we go through this process, we're looking to make this, if possible, a revenue neutral process. And so we would be asking, or potentially asking, is probably the right word, potentially asking that a company pay for the regulatory review processes. Next slide, please. Next slide. I would point out that there is a lot of documentation on this land online and available, including the rods for the circular cleanup processes that will give you a lot more information on this land. Just one of the processes is the National Historic Preservation Act, and very important for us to understand the cultural and historical significance of these lands and make sure that we follow those processes. Next slide. Again, we've laid out our DOE's role and the DOE, and next slide, the role of any partners that we have. Next slide, please. One more slide, please. There are a couple other processes I just wanted to make sure you're aware of. So there is part of the circular process that we would go through and ensure that there are no hazardous materials out there and that it's safe for human health. So there's a process to go out and do sampling, et cetera, that is very rigorous and peer-reviewed to ensure that that land is available for its intended use. And there's also a process, equivalent process for the radiological processes to ensure that this land, again, is ready for development and free from contamination. So I believe that concludes my remarks, and I look forward to your questions and also, again, your feedback on how we would do this right. There's an opportunity here, I believe, and the real question is how do we take advantage of the opportunity in a way that really benefits all of us. It benefits the cleanup mission, it benefits the public communities, it benefits the tribes, it benefits the companies that would partner with us in this endeavor. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. As Ingrid said, I've got a very long and complicated title, but I think as far as the Tri-Cities is concerned, the most important thing is that I'm an alumnus of Mark Twain Elementary School. So I work for our Undersecretary for Infrastructure, which is a new part of the Department of Energy. And I assume most people don't really want any extended explanations of the internal organizational structures at the department. But I did want to talk a little bit about what we do, mostly because we're a new part of the department that is entirely focused on working with communities and working with the private sector to deploy clean energy and to help new energy technologies be commercialized and adopted more rapidly to help seize all of the many benefits that are upon us in the middle of this huge clean energy transition that is going on. So I just want to really quickly talk about how we think about that and how we approach that. Both as it relates to resources that are available to help with clean energy development broadly throughout the region and specifically here at Hanford, and what it implies about how Department of Energy will work with the community and work with potential developers on how to maximize benefits for the exciting potential of clean energy development here at Hanford. So the quick story is that the Department of Energy historically has basically two broad missions. One is the nuclear security mission, in terms of weapons and cleaning up from the legacy of our weapons production programs, and then the clean energy technology development mission. That clean energy mission historically has been about 80 to 90% research and development. We've got the labs full of folks, including folks here at the Pacific Northwest National Lab, who have spent decades bringing down the cost of solar power, advancing carbon capture as a technology, advancing hydrogen as a technology. Well, the exciting thing about where we're at as a country, as a region, as all of you know, as we've heard from many of you about the opportunities around here, we're in a new place where so many of these technologies are not just ready, but they are now cost competitive and they are offering all sorts of additional benefits So a lot of these new clean energy technologies are cheaper than incumbent technologies when it comes to saving consumers, households, businesses money on their bills. They clearly have reduced environmental impact. They're also a huge opportunity, especially as we look as a country to re-onshore manufacturing, to create a whole new breadth of jobs and economic development, not just making, selling, and consuming electricity, but manufacturing the equipment that builds that electricity. And we really think there's potential for all of that right here in the Tri-Cities region. So where we're at as a department on this and how it relates more directly to some of this is that, as people have probably heard, the president has had remarkable success getting a series of new laws through with bipartisan support in Congress. And in some ways, it's even more bipartisan because it transcends administrations. At the end of the last administration, the Energy Act of 2020 created a whole bunch of new clean energy deployment opportunities. That had nearly unanimous congressional support. And then President Biden, with the bipartisan infrastructure law and then the Inflation Reduction Act, has injected hundreds of billions of dollars of funding into actually seizing these opportunities. And that's what our Office of Infrastructure is really focused on, is how do we partner with communities, with companies, to deploy those funds in a way that's going to benefit communities and really position the whole country economically the right way. So how do we approach that? I think number one, there's a lot of things about why there's been suddenly so much momentum for clean energy that I think are part of it, that we're very conscious of, that we want to continue to maximize. And I think a big part of that is there's been a pivot away from just sort of fighting about climate change and regulating and taxing climate change to investing in seizing the economic opportunity that it is to build these new clean energy industries. And we want that exact approach to be infused into how we go about developing clean energy on Department of Energy lands as well. So the couple of key things here are, number one, we want to maximize the economic development and jobs benefit, especially to the local community. We don't just want to get the cheapest electricity anywhere we can. We want to do it in a way that's going to truly create jobs. And that's a place that we know the Hanford Site and the Environmental Management Mission were really arm in arm. That has been such a huge approach to the cleanup of the site, has been how to do that in a way that benefits local businesses, that's in partnership with local communities, including tribes, and really does try to bring all the maximum benefits together. Number two, we want to do that by looking at the broadest range of possible opportunities. So that means not just some of the most common things that are moving most rapidly, like solar and storage technologies. It also means potential new energy technology opportunities. There's a lot of talk in the area about green hydrogen production. There are obviously critical electric grid needs that could not just benefit this site, but could also help other businesses, new manufacturing, get access to clean electricity with better grid and transmission capacity. And number three, we want to do it in true partnership with especially local communities and local tribal communities. And that is for one pretty basic reason, but to put it on the table, the Hanford and the Tri-Cities area knows as much as anybody that too often when the energy industry or the US government has come in with a very large new energy technology, and in the case of Hanford, for national security reasons, it did not work out at the beginning of the project for the community to truly be on the table, partnering on what was going to happen. In fact, it was quite the opposite. People were actually displaced. Both tribal members and non-tribal members were moved off the land. As the cleanup mission has pivoted and focused on partnering with those communities to plan these projects together, we want to do the same thing in this exact way. And we expect that too of folks who are coming in to look at leasing and developing land, that they are also doing that in full partnership with local communities, with tribal leaders at the table from the beginning to make sure that we're getting all the benefits possible out of any potential project. I'll just close quickly by saying there's two big ways that the Undersecretary for Infrastructure can be helpful here. Number one, we have got a whole bunch of programs that can provide funding, ranging from significant below market rate loans to help develop clean energy technology to cost share grant type agreements. And so that could be at play for depending on the kinds of technologies that end up going forward here, assuming there is a decision to go forward with leasing some of these lands. And the last thing is that we can play a direct role working with community partners and with potential developers to help facilitate access to some of these solutions, whether that's on the funding side or other challenges like working on the transmission and interconnection side, which we know is a huge challenge across the country for clean energy projects. So I will wrap up right there, and so we can move as quickly as we can to questions. And should I pass it right on to Julie?
That would be good.
All right, Julie, you're up.
Well, I'd like to thank my colleagues for holding this information day and for inviting me to speak about the DOE science mission here in the Tri-Cities. So in addition to the Hanford Cleanup Mission, DOE has an important scientific discovery mission, and that mission is to address national problems in basic science, sustainable energy, and national security. And we do that at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. So PNL, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, is one of DOE's 17 national labs. This one is stewarded by the Office of Science, and Battelle Memorial Institute manages and operates the laboratory for the Department of Energy. It's through PNL's heritage, Hanford heritage, that they've developed fundamental science strengths in chemistry, earth science, biology, and data sciences. And it's through these core capabilities that PNL advances the frontiers of knowledge, taking on some of the world's greatest science and technology challenges, from achieving sustainable energy through decarbonization to enhancing national security through nuclear materials and threat analysis. So just a little bit about PNL specifically. They employ over 6,000 engineers, scientists, and professionals. The vast majority of those staff are located in Washington at our Richland campus or Seattle or our Sequim campus. Just last year, PNL's researchers and staff completed $1.3 billion of work. 75% of that work was in direct support of the Department of Energy. The other 25% was in support of other federal agencies such as Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and National Institutes of Health, and many other federal agencies. Included in this portfolio is work that they've done for universities and industry as well. So as an Office of Science laboratory, PNL is known as a leader in climate science and catalysis. They're also a nationally recognized leader in modernizing and securing our electric grid to make it more resilient and reliable, and it's known for its energy storage work. From making the clean energy technologies of today better, to reducing the energy consumption of buildings, PNL's broad portfolio covers the energy technologies and the energy conservation we'll need to meet climate goals. So PNL partners with industry to help solve problems and bring technologies to market. And those abilities are increasing with the completion of the grid storage launchpad facility. This will be completed early next year. So grid storage is critical to our ability to meet carbon reduction goals while ensuring a reliable and resilient grid. Building on PNL's leadership in this area, DOE's Office of Electricity has invested in the grid storage launchpad to accelerate the development of next-generation grid storage solutions. So this facility will provide testing and validation of grid storage technologies, from basic materials and components to prototypes that will enable technologies that are safer, more cost-effective, and more durable. Of course, operating cutting-edge instruments and tools means significant power needs. So PNL is currently a customer of the City of Richland, and they get a set allocation of electricity annually. But looking ahead at the next 5 to 10 years, we do anticipate PNL's power needs to grow, perhaps 38 to 122%. This higher percentage growth is directly tied to the laboratory's net zero initiative. And this initiative is focused on eliminating fossil fuels and electrifying as many of our campus facilities as possible. So that's a big potential swing, but if we're going to meet the ambitious clean energy goals of the administration and the state of Washington, we'll be on the higher end of that spectrum. So the reality is, just like the Tri-Cities area, we'll need more power in the coming years. So PNL has long been a leader in partnership with the community and with the industry in this area, and I know they look forward to the potential new opportunities the Clean Up to Clean Energy initiative can bring to the Tri-Cities. And on behalf of the Office of Science, we're just glad to be here and look forward to continuing to work with our DOE colleagues on this effort. So thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. That was very interesting. And now we're going to get into the fun part, questions. All right, so I have some questions that I was thinking about as you all were talking. And Brian, I'm going to start with you. So you're the assistant site manager for EM, and you know this community, you know Hanford inside and out. So you have industry in the room, the community in the room, tribal leaders in the room. This is your opportunity to give your pitch as to why Hanford is the place where developers should come and construct clean electricity projects.
Thanks, Ingrid. Is it on?
I don't think so.
How about now?
Yes.
Good, perfect. Thank you. So as we look at Tri-Cities, there are some real benefits to this. I wrote the very first white paper as we talked about, should we progress with this? And my view was there was a national benefit to this in the clean energy and climate change fight. There was a very regional benefit to the people that live here in having new clean power available to support jobs and to grow in the community. And there is a definite potential need for the power as we progress with the cleanup mission. So the first one I think is very obvious, and it's not my area of expertise. The second I'll just talk about quickly. When you look at Tri-Cities, there's a deep base of technical and craft workers here that are available to produce a new project and move it forward. There are slated projects that have a need for power, if it's available, that will allow additional clean activities in the Tri-Cities as we move forward. So the Tri-Cities as an entity is a tremendous place to build this project. Hanford itself, as we move forward with the cleanup mission, we also are looking at how we reduce our carbon footprint. And as I project my power needs for the future, I currently have Bonneville Power's that is meeting our needs. But this facility also allows me to have that backup if I need power in the future as my cleanup mission progresses, to be able to potentially tap into this source. So it's an incredible opportunity that I hope that we're all able to realize. The last thing I would say is that there is an opportunity here in that working together. And that's why we've started the process the way we have. So we didn't just publish a request for proposals first. We've asked for that information as to how do we move forward. And those steps where we work together, I think will craft a future project for us that will be far more successful than if we just envisioned it and did it in the good old days of where we just moved forward without that consultation and integration across. So.
Great, thank you. So Brian, you mentioned the Bonneville Power Administration. So I'm going to turn to Jeremiah. Jeremiah, could you tell us, I mean, this is just incredibly important. Can you tell us about the process of working with BPA and the interconnection issues?
Absolutely. Am I on here? All right. So
Push the button.
Nope.
There you go.
how's that? Oh.
Yes.
So Bonneville Power Administration is also a part of our infrastructure office at the Department of Energy. As anyone knows who has attempted to interconnect new clean energy to Bonneville's system or to virtually any utility system in the country, interconnection is a huge challenge right now, which is basically the sort of rapidly accelerating pace of clean energy build out is sort of running into some complicated both bureaucratic and engineering processes across the nation at our grid managers. And Bonneville would be the first to tell you that the current wait time is quite long to get an interconnection for a new energy project on the Bonneville system. If you are in the habit of following somewhat obscure bureaucratic processes, like some of us are professionally obligated to do, you might be aware Bonneville is actually just getting to the end of a process of updating their whole procedure for interconnecting to the queue. They are following the lead of some of the best practices nationally, some of what FERC is requiring grid managers to do. And they're actually starting to step up and move ahead even faster than what FERC is requiring for FERC-regulated entities through a couple of different approaches by looking at how to do studies of entire groups, clusters, we call them, of projects and interconnection requests. So it's not this sort of current problem where it's one after another and then one study changes the next study and delays everybody's study behind it, but trying to look at more geographically clustered places that grid upgrades might be necessary. And then changing some of the rules, which will, I will acknowledge, will have winners and losers among developers, but so that we don't have there's sort of a problem right now of what's gone on is that because the interconnection queues got so long, clean energy developers started a habit of getting into the queue early, even when the project wasn't actually really ready to go. But the problem is if you get to your place in line, your project's not ready to go, it then of course slows down the rest of the queue. So there's this whole concept of switching to first ready rather than first in line to get the queue moving faster. So we're expecting that to shave many years off the current interconnection queue timeline, reduce the wait times by more than half. It's all, of course, brand new, and we're just trying it, so we're eager for feedback. And if there are other things Bonneville should be doing, feel free to corner me. And lastly, I'd note is that we're absolutely available to help partner with Bonneville and anyone out there interested to just help solve specific problems that folks are encountering beyond the kind of broader reform to the interconnection process.
Okay, thank you, Jeremiah. Yeah, that change is absolutely key, and it couldn't have come at a better time. So that's perfect. Thank you. All right, Julie, you talked about PNNL and how they can be helpful in this initiative and helpful potentially to developers. So can you talk a little bit more about that? And I was particularly interested in what you said about the work you all are doing on storage. That's key.
So I think I'm on now.
Yeah.
So yeah, just from a national laboratory perspective, I think I've heard the secretary say, we're the solutions agency, and that really comes through with the national laboratories. They have extensive expertise and facilities, equipment, and different technologies that are available through the laboratory system, and we have a lot of different ways to mechanisms in which we can work and partner with industry to get access to those laboratory capabilities. I think the grid storage launchpad that I mentioned is just one example of that, where we'll be able to bring in storage technologies and test those and just really help industry understand and accelerate that development of storage capabilities. But like I said, PNNL has expertise and capabilities across many of the mission areas in energy as well as fundamental science and just environmental aspects as well. So there's just a lot of opportunity there to partner to help solve any issues and technological problems that industry might have as they work towards clean energy. So.
Yeah, absolutely. PNNL is an incredible, incredible resource and such a fantastic lab. All right, thank you. Okay, I'd like to invite the audience if anyone has a question. We have some roving mics. They are ready. See, they are ready. They want your questions, and here we go. And if you could just state your name and what organization you're with, that would be terrific.
Hi, good morning. Alex Pugh, Director of Development from Hecate Energy. So we've been investing in the region for the last 4 or so years in the form of a clean energy project. We're pretty excited about this opportunity. So thank you for making it available. One of the things we noticed in the solar supply chain is we need more manufacturing here in the US just to ensure that we can actually get the components we need to build our projects. So just wondering if manufacturing can be part of a potential proposal for a solar storage or any other project on site with the Hanford Reserve.
Okay, well, that's interesting because I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm also the manager of the Forrestal building, and we're putting a solar array on the roof of our building. And our efforts to get American-made solar panels has been challenging. We have done it, but it has taken far longer than we would like. So who would like to take this question? Jeremiah, I'm going to call on you. That's a good question, by the way.
I think the short answer is yes. We want to hear ideas for how to integrate the full scope of economic opportunities around clean energy. And if there's a way manufacturing can be part of that, whether that's literally at the site or adjacent to the site or just creating power that's going to enable more manufacturing, we're sort of all ears on what the best approaches here are.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jeremiah. And just one thing I want to add, I mean, we want, with these projects, we want to make sure electricity is being generated. I mean, that's the whole point. Get as much clean electricity out there as we possibly can. All right, who has the next question? Right here.
Thank you. My name's Lisa Williams. I work at Energy Northwest. So our question concerns the 10% energy community credit that's available under the Inflation Reduction Act. And is there a path intended to redefine brownfield or another mechanism in mind to offset the inability to exercise this energy community credit on federal land?
Jeremiah is ready to take this one.
I will be very clear, I don't know what the answer is on federal land and how that relates. But to contextualize a little bit, under the Inflation Reduction Act, one of the major investments here is through the tax credits that have long been available for clean energy, but have often been limited because as tax credits usually work, you have to, of course, have a big tax liability to be able to get a 30% tax credit. Well, the Congress did something very interesting and what we think is going to be incredibly powerful here, which is they made a bunch of new options available under the tax code. One of them is called direct pay or elective pay, which means even if you are not an entity that normally has tax liability, meaning either you're a company that doesn't have sufficient tax liability, or more interestingly and innovatively, anybody that doesn't owe taxes, so a nonprofit, a tribal nation, a local government, you can also be the developer owner of a clean energy project. And because you don't pay any taxes, rather than getting a discount on your taxes, the IRS will literally send you a check for 30% of the value of the project to get that exact same economic benefit. What the reference here is to, there's although a number of additional kind of add-on bonus values for the tax credit. One of those is for energy communities, which is basically communities that have historically been involved in the energy industry and are facing this energy transition. I actually don't know the answer for exactly which lands around here are designated, but we can definitely get you an answer on that because there are specific requirements for how to qualify for that. I also want to highlight there are a number of similar ones as well. So there is a low-income community tax credit adder. There are bonuses for complying with domestic content and paying good value wages and benefits with good career track training benefits for workers as well. That can all add up to you can even get more than 50% of the value of a project if you kind of hit all the buttons to maximize the tax values. So that's something we definitely want to partner with folks to help make sure you have all the information that you need to maximize that opportunity.
All right, thank you, Jeremiah. All right, we have another question in the back.
Good morning. My name's Diane Howard. I'm the Executive Director for the Port of Benton and also for Washington Vertical, which is an international economic development cluster model. Not so much a question, more a statement of thanks. First, being a born and raised Tri-Citian, it really makes my heart warm to know that the melter is going and we're finally moving towards cleanup. I believe this community has envisioned a transition from cleanup to clean energy since our inception, and so we're very excited about this opportunity. But I would also like to make a couple statements about what we see as the future. Washington Vertical is primarily focused on helping accelerate advanced nuclear, but we also understand that other clean energy opportunities are a part of that. So we stand ready to be here to help and to collaborate and to coordinate. When I look at the maps, though, from an industrial and economic development perspective, everything south of Route 4 and south of the 400 area, there's really only one way industrially that the Richland community can grow, and that's unfortunately north. So we need to ensure and ask that we can have a strategic coordinated vision together with all parties to ensure that we've got a balance of generation, new energy opportunities, as well as the industrial that we're going to need in and around it. We stand ready to help, and we stand ready to support the developers in the room to ensure that we're here to help you. We've successfully been able to show that we can do this as a community in our partnership with Energy Northwest, current solar project that's underway, Atlas Agro that's got a pending transaction coming forward, as well as other prospects. So we are here to help. I also would like to invite everyone in this audience, give a heads up that Energy Community Alliance will be here in May of next year on new nuclear, and that'll also possibly include other opportunities for clean energy demonstrations and discussions. And please join us as part of the Clean Energy Supplier Alliance as we prepare to reshore and make sure that this community is ready for advanced manufacturing opportunities. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for those comments. You hit on several important points, one of them being about the generation and the types of clean energy technologies we're looking at. We are looking at all ideas. Everything is on the table. We want to hear from you. I know we've talked a lot about solar, but there are so many other carbon pollution-free electricity technologies that are out there. We want to hear about them and explore them. If you look at the executive order that Narayan referenced earlier, this is the one on federal sustainability. It's Executive Order 14057. There is a definition, a long definition of carbon pollution-free technologies, and that's the one that we are using. So thank you for making that point. Also, you've reminded me of another question that I wanted to ask the panel about. And this is specifically for Brian, and Jeremiah, you can add in also. But I think we're all in agreement that this needs to be a partnership between DOE, the communities, the tribal nations. So Brian, for the developers, what does that really look like? What are our expectations for what the developers should be doing to make sure that this really is a partnership?
We would expect to have the developers be very active in discussions with the community and the tribes about how to partner in those opportunities to maximize the benefit. We really do believe there is some real synergy that can be had by those partnerships, some real opportunities there. And so we would expect any proposals coming in that would be very clear on how you have made connections, how those connections would support the success of the project, not just in energy generation, but in really building our communities and building those resources that are available today. Expanding the trained personnel, for example, expanding the jobs. Those partnerships are really key as we look forward to the future.
Thank you. And I'm reminded of something the Deputy Secretary was saying earlier, walking the walk. Walking the walk. This isn't just about talking about partnership. Great. Jeremiah, anything you want to add to that?
You know, if it's helpful, I could just maybe briefly describe what we across DOE are starting to do for the funding, the loans and the grant programs that are investing in private sector projects. We have a kind of standardized process we call the Community Benefits Plan, where everyone applying for DOE funding with the application submits a proposal for how they're going to benefit the local community. And the kind of big anchors in that are quality jobs. How are you making sure the jobs getting created are truly good wages and benefits, career track training, and maximizing local benefit too, not bringing in workers from across the country who are going to disappear at the end of the project, but really maximizing that local job creation. And then on the community side, both the full range of benefits in the sense that, especially at a site like Hanford, we want to make sure that we're minimizing new environmental impact, minimizing impact on cultural resources, maximizing environmental benefit, but also maximizing the localized benefits to the community, which especially I think includes a particular focus on communities that have traditionally been left behind in big energy transitions and big energy projects. And of course, here that means not just a local community that has been part of the Hanford experience for 70 years now, but especially the native tribal nations that are such a big part of the local community, and many of whom are actively developing clean energy projects as well. And then, as Brian said, such a big part of this is just that engagement, right? We don't want to hear developers telling us what the benefits are if no one in the local area has ever heard of this or has agreed that those are the benefits that they want. And those partnerships we are finding just more and more across technologies across the country are not just part of, as Ingrid said, walking the walk and doing things right and getting it right on a kind of moral obligation basis. They're also part of project success. You hear all the stories about the energy projects that run into a permitting problem or a NEPA problem. Too often, that's just because they weren't actually partnering with the local community. So of course, people get more and more concerned and upset. They start using the legal processes available to them to slow down the project, to try to make their voices heard. The biggest solution to permitting delays is to engage with local community, anybody who might have concerns, and especially anybody who might benefit. And so we really see it as a project risk management strategy to do right by the local community. And that's kind of the starting point that we come with.
I think that's really well put. So what you're saying, Jeremiah, is in order for these projects to be successful, executed in a timely way, partnering with the community in a real way and the tribal nations is absolutely a must. Perfect. Okay, all right. Other questions or comments?
Sean O'Brien, Citizen is my affiliation. Curious, Brian, regarding the BLM checkerboard, can you talk about the history there? I wasn't aware that there might still be jurisdiction over some of those lands. And regarding that, have we encountered that jurisdiction in the past with LIGO or Energy Northwest or the other growth out there? And then if there is jurisdiction looking forward, has there been discussion about this program, this initiative with BLM? Are they a part of the conversation? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The answer is, again, those were public lands when the Atomic Energy Agency took over the Hanford Site. So that's they were designated that before DOE, now the DOE arrived. We have been in discussions with BLM. We don't yet have a direct solution. But if you were to see the Hanford Site as a whole, you would see not exactly the same, but similar. There was a lot of public lands, a lot of private land out in the 586 square miles. We believe there is a reasonable path forward, but we haven't defined that at this point. And again, I think it's key here to also remember that this land right now is under federal control as part of the Hanford Reservation, and we're talking about leases. And so those leases will have a defined end, and the expectation will be that a lease will end with the land being returned to the status that it is today. It'll be cleaned up, and similar to what you see today will be out the end result. And so any activities out there on those lands that are BLM lands would take into account that this is not a permanent change to the land, but only a change to the land while the Hanford cleanup mission continues.
All right, thank you, Brian, and thank you for that question. I don't know if you read about this, but I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago, BLM actually started leasing out land for clean energy projects, the land that they own. So I thought that was really good. So our conversations with BLM have been quite good because they are doing the same thing that we are trying to do. And also, the Army and the Air Force have been doing this very successfully in leasing land for clean energy projects. So lots of precedent out there, and we've been working with all of those agencies very closely to get their lessons learned. So they've been incredibly helpful. Okay, other questions? Right here. Oh, we have 2. All right. He's standing up, but okay.
I'll make sure I leave time for you. Yeah, my name is Bill with Avangrid Renewables. And thank you all very much. This has been very helpful and really appreciate all your efforts. Couple questions. One's immediate follow-up to Brian, what you just said about land restoration at the end of the project. A lot of our projects require lease extensions for them to be successful over long duration. So to put numbers on the concept of restoring the land, what would you anticipate project termination to be? 20 years, 30, 50, 100? Brian, you mentioned this should go on during the cleanup effort, but I, for one, have no idea how long that is.
Thank you. Yeah.
I got
so-
my answer right there.
Yeah, thanks. So the answer is that the Hanford cleanup mission is slated to be 50 years or more. So, again, there is a connection to this activity, to the cleanup mission, and so we've kind of focused in. We are looking for the feedback and input in this process to have the companies, as part of their process, tell us, what do you need for a lease, a time frame, so that we can understand that. And I'm sure it'll be dependent upon technology, what technology is being proposed and stuff like that. But we have 50 or more years worth of cleanup activities to progress here on the site.
Thanks, that's very helpful. Follow-up question, I promise, just quick. Some of our technologies, especially some of the cutting-edge technologies, require water. Anybody have a sort of a high-end evaluation of water availability on the site?
Brian, do we have that? Next question.
So please submit that. So it is very complex. Let me put it that way. It is extremely complex. It depends on where the water is going to come from and stuff like that. So I couldn't even do it justice in our time. So please feel free to ask that question, and we'll get you a very technical and correct response. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you for that, Brian. And I just want to add too, on the length of the leases, our leasing authority is quite broad and fairly unlimited. So we are thinking long-term, longer than we ever have before. So we're thinking in terms of decades. But we look forward to seeing what the proposals say. Okay, you have been very patient.
Good morning. My name's Anne Marie Grigger with Renewable Energy Systems. And I wanted to ask, Jeremiah, you spoke about BPA and their process, it's undergoing a change. And I was curious if there had been any thought yet to how the timelines for obtaining a lease with all of the NEPA and Section 106 and other reviews, how to line that up with the interconnection timeframes too, so that any sort of project that's proposed, all the various timelines line up to be able to start construction. Thank you.
I think the short answer is we don't have a sort of detailed plan around that, but it depends a lot on the technology and sort of what the power needs are, both for use of power or exporting of power. And then, of course, the specific technology and the specific sites within the 30 square miles will also determine what the kind of NEPA or other processes look like. But for sure, that's part of DOE's role, is to coordinate a lot of that around our projects. And we have a whole armies of technical experts that can help with some of that. So the goal would certainly be to help facilitate and get those timelines lined up to work best for development.
So I'm glad that you brought up NEPA, because I was going to ask Brian to talk a little bit more about that. And Brian, so if you could talk about the timeline and also the cost.
Well, let's do the easy one first. The cost, we're hoping that this would be a revenue neutral process. And so that we anticipate we would likely ask the companies to pay for those activities. And I'm going to be blunt. My budget, my focus is cleanup, and those monies that were appropriated really do need to focus on our cleanup. So that's why we're anticipating and looking for the companies to help. So on the other side, the NEPA process is only one of the processes. I did jump through those slides very quickly. I'd anticipate it's probably a 2 to 4 year process for the NEPA processes. There are several regulatory processes. We will try and run those concurrently. And I will mention that we have started the first step in the process, which is a cultural review. Very important for us to understand the cultural significance of these lands. And we've already asked our contractor to start that process. So are some of the processes that we are starting today simply because it doesn't matter what we do with the land going forward, we will still need to do the process. I still need to understand the cultural significance of this land, no matter what I do, whether it's a technology development or whether it's a turnover to the public or return to the tribes. However those processes work out, I need to understand that. The sampling of the soils and stuff, we'll need to do those processes. So while we're working through this process on developing a potential path forward, we will start those processes and try and progress them as far as we can without knowing what the actual process is. NEPA will need to know what that process is before it can really start the process.
Okay, great, thank you. And I love that term, cost neutral. Over to you.
Hello, my name is Todd Ricks. I'm with OcoChem. We make electrofuels. So one of the questions I had, there's been a lot of talk about clean energy generation at the site, but what about clean electricity uses for industrial purposes, for making industrial products like steel, chemicals, electrofuels? Is that part of the consideration set for the use of the land and or developers building projects there? Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. We have conceptually thought of energy generation. I do believe it's worth at least coming in and sharing your perspective on what else could be done, because this really is the big picture, right? Energy generation and clean energy generation is a definite need and focus. But there is technologies, there are thoughts out there that we're asking you to submit to us so that we can have a better understanding of what we could do to use this land productively and maximize its benefits. So I would suggest at this point, please share with us your thoughts.
If I might.
Sure.
Thank you for that reply. Just as a quick follow-up, and one of the ways that the clean energy transformation is thought to occur is people electrifying existing industries and converting from fossil-based fuel predominance to clean energy. And so one of the neat opportunities potentially with this site is to couple both new clean energy production with new industries that need lots of clean energy to make e-fuels and hydrogen and chemicals and steel. And if you do that in one place, that could dramatically reduce things like interconnect delays and other things, because you're kind of a semi-cogen type of facility. So I'm just providing that as feedback, because for all the developers thinking about clean energy projects, you have to think about your off-takers and your long-term agreements for those types of things. And attracting industries that would be long-term off-takers for those might be a very quick, or maybe not quick, but at least a symbiotic way of generating things, and potentially much lower cost points than would be the case with farther distributed kind of businesses and generation needs. Thank you.
Okay.
And not to speak out of turn, but I would say, and the communities would also love to be involved in that process, whether it's this land or whether it's other areas in the community. We would definitely encourage that to occur.
Jeremiah, you look like you wanted to add something.
The other piece I would just add, you're hitting the nail on the head. I think there's just so many opportunities here, and getting the synergy right is how you maximize the benefit and minimize the cost. The local community's already got a ton of electricity needs as well, from rise in manufacturing, like new battery production. Certainly, if green hydrogen gets off the ground, that's going to require electricity and also be producing new energy. And the Hanford Site and Pacific Northwest National Lab could need a fair amount of new electricity in the future too. So that's one reason we are definitely interested in electricity generation at the site, but also interested in exactly what you're talking about, other industrial users, people that might use some of that clean electricity and help solve a broader set of energy and economic development challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that when we went into this, we're thinking purely generation, generate as much electricity as we possibly can. But, we are open to ideas and look forward to hearing them as you respond to the RFI. All right, and then Julie, Jeremiah kind of set this up for you and talking about PNNL. What are your electricity needs going to be in the future? Are they increasing?
Yes, as I said, as I kind of mentioned earlier, again, we do have a initiative to electrify our buildings, and as we do that, our needs could increase by 122%. So we definitely have increasing needs in this area, and so we're going to be looking for that additional power capability.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know for the developer community, it's important, obviously, to have off-takers, and PNNL, the site, definitely first in line to be off-takers. Yes, sir, right here. Oh, wait, do we have others ahead? No.
Hi, Sandra Haynes from Washington State University, Tri-Cities, and I want to first thank you for taking the Clean Up to Clean Energy initiative to greater heights and for having so much, dare I say, energy behind that or excitement behind that.
We love puns. Yeah, that's great.
Right. You too. So my question, or I also want to thank you for bringing up the community benefits plan. And my question revolves around the DOE's support around educating that new workforce. There's going to be a ton of education needed, and the education that's provided has the potential to really increase social mobility for especially underserved populations. And we're very focused on that here in the Tri-Cities. You've mentioned the tribes, but we also have a very large Hispanic population here too. And I'm very much appreciative of you saying the need for a local workforce. But again, we're going to need education for that workforce. And I'm wondering if you could speak to how you might support, how the DOE might support education in bringing people along in that new energy economy.
Okay, Jeremiah would like to answer this question.
I would. Thank you, by the way, for your leadership at Washington State. It's exciting to come home and see such a stellar institution flourishing in the Tri-Cities. You sound like you're talking from DOE's perspective on how we do all these workforce benefits. The short answer is, number one, I do want to flag what you said, which is that a specific aspect of the community benefits is looking to help particularly disadvantaged communities, low-income communities, and communities of color that in many cases have been here for decades but not seen the same economic benefit that other folks necessarily have. We do have some resources, some dedicated grant programs and so on and so forth around workforce training, for sure. We're also happy to help facilitate working with other partners in the federal government. The Department of Labor has a whole set of assets to help with workforce development opportunities. And an important part of the community benefits plan is we also do ask that developers and people coming in to be employers plan to and have budget actually to help invest in workforce training to make sure that that is truly what's happening and that the whole community is stronger at the end of a project. Senator Lecture has a follow-up.
Just a quick follow-up. I just want to make sure that we're that when you're focusing on education and training of the workforce, that you're really focusing on elevating the communities that are underserved. So that might not just be the training. It would be giving opportunities for not only the labor force, but also all the way and up into including those PhDs that are going to be needed as well. So providing that full gamut of education that really gives those underserved communities a seat at the table in the future.
Fully agree. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. And you will be glad to know that this is something that we have really been talking about and determining how we're going to address that need. We've been talking about this for a few months, so thanks for that reinforcement. Okay, there was a gentleman here. Yes, there.
Thank you. John Dobkin with Westinghouse. I just wanted to get a little clarity on the size of projects that you might be looking at in terms of megawatt output. I saw in the RFI that there was an over 200 megawatt number in there. Are you looking for projects of that size or smaller projects as well?
We are looking for projects that are 200 megawatts plus, as big as possible. So that said, You know, we've been, I think, emphasizing that we really want to hear from you all. We want to hear your responses to the request for information and tell us, you know, what you think, because it's 19,000 acres. And so there's room for a lot of opportunity and a lot of possibilities. There could be a scenario where we have, you know, like one really large utility scale project and then others, smaller projects. You know, the possibilities are pretty endless since we have so much land to work with. So again, you know, please let us know what you're thinking, and we'll be looking at those submissions very closely. Okay. But I will say, a huge project would be amazing. One where we, and I will just tell you, the Air Force, Edwards Air Force Base, they recently rolled out a clean energy project. And it happens to be a solar array. It covers about 4,600 acres. And I don't know exactly how much electricity it's generating, but 4,600 acres, we're 4 times as big. So think of the potential there. Not that we're competitive or anything, but you know, but we have been talking to the Air Force about their experience and getting as much as we can from them so we can do better. All right. We have another question. You know, I have to tell you, this is fantastic how many questions you have. We had Industry Day in Washington, D.C., and I'll tell you, it's Washington, D.C. Questions, you get like 3. This is fabulous. Talk about community involvement. We love it. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Brian Cunnington with Energy Northwest. I guess you can consider me the 6th Brian or the 7th Brian.
Another one. We have to get a picture.
We do. Well, we got all the Brians together maybe. So there is an emphasis at Energy Northwest that continues to look for clean energy projects, and especially with generation. And one of the things I think we need to emphasize again and make at least some clarity is the ability to move the electrons out of Hanford. And transmission is going to be an extremely important part of this. So I'm glad you're saying that focusing on generation is important, and that's maybe the priority. I can go off of different questions on that alone, but I think there needs to be an emphasis, at least overall, looking at 20,000-foot level of how to put in the infrastructure for transmission and to work with BPA. So it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. And of course, we're looking at all new nuclear ourselves out there at Energy Northwest at Site 1, and we continue to look for other projects that maybe can go hand in hand with any other generation that we're looking for out there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have hit the nail on the head. That is the big challenge, the infrastructure. And that's why we have Jeremiah, who is figuring out the answers to all these tough questions. Jeremiah, anything else you want to add to that?
I was just going to go put a line up this afternoon. No, I think that we know it's a huge challenge in this region. The region has had reliability and grid constraints for a while now. Bonneville actually got some projects in the works to help with some of that, but it's going to clearly need to be a more, I think, ambitious and forward-looking plan to help really open up the opportunity for the region's economic development. And so we're talking to Bonneville about that and eager to work with the community on it.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. And it's a challenge not only here in Washington State, but across the nation. So one way of looking at it is if we are generating a lot of electricity, it's going to force us as a nation to really make sure that our grid is stronger. All right, another question back here.
Yeah, hi, my name is David Replug. I represent, I guess, a couple of organizations. First, the Tri-City Development Council, or TRIDEC, which is the economic development organization for the Tri-Cities, as well as the Community Reuse Organization for the Hanford Site, as well as Hanford Communities, which represents the local governments on Hanford cleanup issues. So first, I wanted to just express appreciation that we did hear a number of times from the Deputy Secretary and from others about the emphasis in engaging and working with the communities and the tribes, the economic development component of this, as well as, I think, especially important from our perspective to continue to try to grow and diversify the economy. And I just wanted to also kind of echo both Diane Howard's comments as well as Todd Brick's about the potential opportunity to kind of co-locate this new clean energy generation with the industrial symbiosis that Todd referenced, the ability to kind of support not only clean energy needs, but also the manufacturing and industrial processes that we also know we're going to need as we look to a cleaner energy future and also decarbonizing the existing industries that we have. But I had a question too. Brian, you sort of mentioned that BPA already is going to be the electricity provider for the Hanford site moving forward. But when you look at some of the new kind of energy technologies that are in development, some of them need to sort of be de-risked. And sometimes those can be de-risked through longer-term power purchase agreements. And right now, I believe that DOE has a pretty limited amount, I think 10-year power purchase agreement limitation. But is there maybe a two-part question? One, for within that 10-year window, would there be an opportunity for some sort of an arrangement either with Hanford or with PNL to purchase some of this clean energy that could be developed? But also, is there an appetite to look further into the future to maybe work with Congress to expand that authority for longer-term power purchase agreements?
Thanks, David. The answer to your question is absolutely. I think that the future development of this land really does support the future, whether it be PNL needs, whether it be community needs and industry in the future, as well as the support for the future cleanup activities. As mentioned earlier, our electrical needs are expanding dramatically for the site. Now, we had anticipated a fairly significant load because of the VIP plant operations, but we are seeing now that our loads will exceed what we expected by, I think the number is 2029 or 30. And so we are starting to contemplate, what do we do? Where do we get that capacity to continue to be successful in the cleanup mission? So the short answer, absolutely.
Yeah.
And David, yes, we have suggested to Congress they might consider letting federal agencies enter into longer-term power purchase agreements. We actually have a Federal Energy Management Program as one of our offices that works with the whole federal government on clean energy acquisition, energy efficiency, decarbonizing. And that's one of their big focuses, helping figure out some of these power purchase issues.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that I have been doing is working with our experts at the Department of Energy who know all about electricity contracts, and it is such a complicated landscape. So we have the experts looking at what all the different options are, and hopefully there will be something that will really, really be helpful to us. Okay, we have about 5 more minutes for questions, and we have another one.
Thank you. You had mentioned you walked through the map, Brian, of the constraint or restricted areas and a couple safety zones, and I was wondering if you can speak to any other restrictions or constraints or things that can't or shouldn't be contemplated in these areas, so that's put out there.
So are you referring to the self-guided tour, or are you referring to a potential project operations?
Potential project operations specifically, just if there's already things that can't happen out there. Thanks.
Yeah, so the only thing that comes to mind at this point is that, as I mentioned, there are leases already in place, and we have to be good neighbors to those leases. So there are some things to contemplate. Vibrations would be the first thing that pops into mind. Both LIGOS and the work down at the labs, they have restrictions on how much vibrations. But those are areas where the department will work through if there's a potential program suggested, and as we go through those discussions to help figure out how do we make things happen and where they're at. But the only one that comes to mind would be vibration. Just be aware that the work going on in both of those facilities is amazing, and we have leases with them that have restrictions.
And that vibration issue mostly means it's likely not going to work for wind development, I think.
That'd be my opinion, but there are some new wind technologies that are on the brink that I'm reading on that might meet the vibration restrictions. So it just depends on what the technology proposed.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay, up front.
Good morning. My name is Lorene Contreras. I'm Program Administrator for Yakima Nation Environmental Restoration Waste Management. My question, we did have the opportunity to meet with you yesterday, and you provided a condensed version of today's presentation. So I do plan to share, the details that have been provided here today, and thank you for that. My question is, with tribes, coming in and having the ability to participate in this manner, I'm just wondering if the Department of Energy, Indian Energy Policy Programs is going to be made available, or will there be representatives that are able to come out and meet with the Yakima Nation to have further conversation and to, it's important for me to make sure that the information that I get and provide up my chain of command, to our leadership is, done in the best way, so that as we go forward, they're able to make, the decisions based upon, the actual things that are occurring and how it's progressing. And I did ask the question after yesterday's meeting if this is also going to be followed up at Stigwig, which you're going to have, access to, more leadership there. Yesterday, you had 2 tribal chairmen, and I wish that they would have been able to hear today's presentation, because it would, provide them with, further insight. But that's my question is, as we go forward, are we going to be able to meet with the Indian Energy Office to, get assistance, or to, have them kind of streamline our participation?
Well, I'm just going to jump right in. The Indian Energy Office isn't here, but I'm going to sign them up. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They are going to be more than happy to meet with you and work with you and the other tribal nations. And this is something that, after the meeting yesterday, Ike and I had a chance to talk yesterday about, what kind of assistance or help might be available. So I'm going to be looking into that. So that's on my to-do list. Absolutely, and we will be back in touch. Jeremiah, anything you want to add?
No, that's exactly right. And the Office of Indian Energy Policies and Programs can offer both no-cost technical assistance, they can offer grants for technical assistance, and they can actually offer grants for project development. The other resource I'd mention is our Tribal Energy Loan Guarantee Program, which can help provide loan financing for tribally owned or operated clean energy projects, which could help if Yakima are interested in developing something at the site.
Okay, thank you for that question. One last question, and I think, or do we have time for 2? 2, okay, 2 last questions.
Me again, sorry.
You asked a tough one last time.
Well, I don't know. But back to the issue of longevity of the project, and Jeremiah, your comment that extending beyond a 10-year PPA might take an act of Congress. Just a comment, that's very scary. So I probably speak for a lot of other people, full speed ahead on dealing with that issue. I think it'll be very important.
Well, I should just clarify, that limitation is only for certain federal agencies if they're the ones buying the power entering into the PPA. It wouldn't restrict any other contracts at the site.
Sure, but on the issue of PNNL taking the power, and on that issue, we've heard percentages, but any idea on what that megawatt load might expand to?
I think on the upper end, it would be around 40 megawatts. That's kind of what we're looking at.
All right, thank you. Okay, our last question.
Thanks, Lisa Williams at Energy Northwest again. And it's not really a question, it's a response to the earlier question about limitations on the site. Just for everyone's awareness, we do have an operating nuclear power plant at the site, and we're required to comply with nuclear regulatory commissions and regulations in terms of emergency planning. There's also chemical analyses for stored chemicals in the area to determine that there will be no impact on main control room habitability. And we also have to look at nearby industrial hazards to identify if there's any adverse impacts on the plant. So as you saw, Energy Northwest is up in that corner. You I'm encouraging everyone to stay not so close to us, but that's up to you. And you know, and that's a great, because I did pose this as like, how is DOE going to ensure that, you know, we can still meet our federal requirements, and it will be a partnership. And that's what I'm taking away from this is, you know, what is the benefit to actually leasing on the DOE land? And I see that you folks up on the stage are saying we're going to partner to help and bring maybe federal help to your developing your project. And it could be maybe not so much as we're going to kick in money, but it could be, hey, here's grants, here's, you know, let's see how we can work together. And that's what we would be looking forward to as well.
I think that's a great way to end the Q&A period. Partnership, working together, absolutely. All right, so the panelists think that they're going to just get to walk off the stage, but I'm going to do a quick lightning round. What are the few last words you want to share with this audience? And I'm going to start with Brian.
I want to say thank you. Even the discussion here, I think, has broadened, you know, the thoughts that I had on these projects or potential projects from what we'd envisioned. I think the perspectives that were shared here really are a start to a future. But I would highly encourage you, please share your perspective on how do we progress in the best way possible that really makes an impact here. So thank you for your attendance.
Okay, Jeremiah.
I'd echo that big thanks. I think this sort of dialogue and engagement is exactly the note that we wanted to get started on and want to keep that going as this project comes together. And I would emphasize opportunity here. We really do want to hear all kinds of ideas and think big about how to have the maximum impact for the local community and for all the national priorities that this community is so adept at contributing to.
Okay, thank you. All right, Julie.
Yeah, and I would just add that as you're thinking about opportunities here, reach out to the laboratory and explore some of the capabilities and opportunities that they have to help partnership in this area as well. So thank you.
Okay, fantastic. All right, love the word partnership. All right, big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. Brian wants to stay. You all can, you're dismissed. Okay, so I just wanted to add a few words about what happens next. Okay, and I think I have a slide. I do have a slide, but before I get to the slide, you know, we've talked a little bit about the request for information that's out there on the street, and the comments are due on October 12th at 4 o'clock, no later than 4 o'clock. But I wanted to share with you what is going to happen with that information. So first of all, I agree with what Brian was saying. This has just been incredibly helpful in getting some of your comments, your questions. It's going to cause us to think and go back and perhaps reassess a few things. So we're going to be doing that. We're eagerly looking forward to October 12th when we're going to get the responses to the request for information. And we're expecting responses from industry, from tribal nations, from the communities. We need to hear from all of you, from all your different perspectives. And don't be shy. This is the time to get your thoughts into us on paper. So we're really looking forward to that. We're going to take all this information and we're going to prepare a draft solicitation. We're calling it a solicitation right now. And our hope is to get that draft solicitation out to all of you to take a look at during the month of November. It'll probably be the last day of November, but sometime in November. And we wanted to put the solicitation out in draft form so that we can again get more comments, more feedback from all of you, because we don't think that we have all the answers by no stretch of the imagination, do we? So we want your input on that draft. Then, once we have that input, we will be putting out the solicitation as a final, and you'll have probably about 60 days to submit those proposals. And we are really hoping for a lot of really good dynamic proposals with many different forms of clean energy technologies submitted for consideration. We will have an expert panel who evaluate all the different proposals, and then we will make a selection or selections, and then we will begin the negotiation process. So all of this is going to take time, but as I think Brian also said, we want to get this right. And you all are a key part of helping us get it right. And here's another reason why this is so important. So I think a few of the speakers have talked about the fact that we're not just pursuing clean energy projects at Hanford, although you all are first. We are going to be pursuing them in Idaho at our Idaho National Laboratory. And as a matter of fact, we have folks from the Idaho National Laboratory who are here listening to everything that's happening, because you're going to help them shape what they're working on. We're also looking at the Nevada test site, or the Nevada National Security Site. I still call it the Nevada test site in Nevada, as well as the Waste Isolation Pilot Project, which is in New Mexico, and all the way across the country in South Carolina, the Savannah River site. So those sites, they have a lot of land as well, and we're going to be working with them on the same kind of initiative, but you all are first. So the work that you're doing today, the questions you are asking, the information you're going to be submitting to us, this is going to shape not only the opportunities for Hanford, but for also other parts of the nation. So that's really big, and that's exciting. It's exciting to me, and I'm sure it is to you as well. So stay tuned for that. So on this slide, there are also some websites. I can't exactly see them, but they are there. And if you're like me and you can't write down the website, just Google it. Google it, and you'll find this information, and you'll be able to locate the RFI. Does everybody have the RFI, hopefully? Oh, you're not going to admit you have the RFI. Is there anybody who can't find the RFI? Okay, well, things are getting quiet now. Okay, so hopefully we will receive lots of submissions. So that is your homework assignment, to make sure that you submit something to us by October 12th. All right, so with that, any last question about next steps before we move on to the next part of our program? All right, everybody's got it. God, you guys got quiet all of a sudden. Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ike White, who is very well known in this community. He doesn't need any kind of introduction, really. But I will say that I have worked with Ike for many years at the Department of Energy and all the different roles that he has served in. And he is truly, truly the model of a public servant. I can't say enough about Ike and the incredible job that he's doing in leading the environmental management program. So Ike is, I will say, one of my heroes at the Department of Energy. And now he's embarrassed. But Ike, why don't you come up and close us out with your remarks? So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you. Gather up all my stuff here.
So thank you, Ingrid. I appreciate that. And I'll get even. I'll point out that of all the people in DOE over the couple of decades that I worked there that you rely on to make things happen, Ingrid is the number one person in DOE when we really want something to happen that we rely on to absolutely be certain that we're going to make it happen. And the fact that you see Ingrid here today means that the secretary and my boss, the deputy, are absolutely determined that we're going to make this happen. So I appreciate having Ingrid on board. We couldn't do this without her either. And so thank you for that. I will keep my remarks brief. I'll just focus on the thing that I think I've heard from all of the folks here today, which is a recurring theme about the opportunity that we have here before us. From a cleanup program perspective, as the person who's responsible for the largest environmental remediation program in the world, one of the things that I often hear about is the scale of the program and sort of the focus on addressing the legacy of the past. But as we do that, we're also very much focused not just on the past and dealing with the obligation that we have to deal with the past, but also focusing on how we shape and work with communities to shape the future. And this is an extraordinary opportunity for us to do that in a couple of different ways. First of all, as Brian Harkins mentioned earlier, if you think about the cleanup mission here at Hanford and you think about all of the work that we have to do, the largest environmental liability the U.S. government has is the tank waste here at Hanford. All of the infrastructure that we need to put in place over the next couple of decades to deal with that environmental liability, it all needs electricity capability, right? And so it is in the cleanup program's interest to work with the community and work with many of you to ensure that we have clean energy available to support the cleanup program going into the future. It's also important to us that as we clean up a site, that we work with sites, with the tribal nations, with the communities around the sites, to do the cleanup program in a way that helps them see the future they want to see for the communities where all of you and where all of the folks who work at our sites live. And so this is an incredible opportunity for us to achieve that part of our mission as well. For the community here, the Deputy Secretary and I have talked to the community a couple different times about the vision that you have here for the future of the communities around the Hanford site. I've certainly talked to you many times over the course of the past 4 years. This is an extraordinary opportunity to help you accelerate that vision for what you want the future of the communities here to see. There's had a really great opportunity to talk about the details with some of you yesterday. This is a great opportunity to help accelerate those details. For the tribal nations around the site, really appreciated the opportunity to meet with tribal leaders yesterday. This is an opportunity not just to help the department shape the future, but to participate in that future actively as well, and to not just help shape and think about how we use the land, but to participate with us in using it in a way that will help all of us achieve a clean energy future. For developers, this is 30 square miles of uninhabited land. As one of the community leaders pointed out to me yesterday, we're talking about an area of land that's approximately the same size as Kennewick, Washington, right? And so the opportunity that you have to work with the community and think about what visions you could have for what we use with this land, to work with tribal partners to help enable those visions going into the future. And quite frankly, to work with the government and with all of us here to help all of us achieve what we need to achieve, which is a clean energy future for this country, because we're literally saving the planet. So with that, I just want to leave you with the idea that this is an incredible opportunity. We want to hear from you, because we want this opportunity to be successful. For it to be successful, we've got to hear from you on what it's going to take to do that. So really encourage you to comment on the RFI, to participate actively with us in shaping the solicitations and the proposals, to work actively with the community and with the tribal nations on the ideas that you have for development, to synchronize those ideas with the communities around the site and with the tribal nations to get maximum support for the things that you think you can make happen. Just an incredible opportunity here. It's on all of us to work together to take advantage of it. One public service announcement for those who weren't able to make the meeting. If you know folks who would really want to hear all of this firsthand, we are going to make it available by video. The same sites that Ingrid pointed out earlier that have the information will also give you the ability to access the discussions here today by video, so you can provide that to folks who would want to see this firsthand for themselves. With that, I think I am the closing speaker. Appreciate all of the interest today. Really appreciate the active engagement from all of you in asking really difficult questions, really challenging questions we need to be able to answer. Appreciate that. Look forward to working with all of you in the future on this. Thank you, and appreciate it. Thank you.